So today I want to talk about Bloomberg News' opinion piece promoting Amazon's factory towns. I still can't believe that company towns have been taken seriously in any capacity as of late, but they have, and here we are having to talk about them and talk about the history behind them and talk about some of these companies being able to run people's lives. And even earlier this year, I covered these so called innovation zones that were being planned to be set up in Nevada that were intended to be small private company towns that would take over services that the state or local municipalities didn't want to take over or didn't want to manage. And the history of company towns really do speak for themselves. There have been numerous atrocities that have been committed in them, and the control they had over workers' lives and their families, whether it be economically or otherwise, just goes to prove the point that you cannot trust a private company whose interest is profit to look out for the needs of people in their jurisdiction. And given that history, I can't imagine why anyone would trust Amazon of all companies to be the one to run a town in a fair and equitable manner. But the author of this opinion piece from Bloomberg seems to support it, so let's take a look at it and see what they have to say. We have here Amazon's new factory towns will lift the working class. Plentiful new jobs at higher wages in places with cheaper housing sounds like a solution to inequality. And first and foremost, I need to say this, any sort of company town is not going to be the solution to inequality. Between the headline and this blurb here, they make it sound like this is going to be the dream of the future where there's going to be higher wages in these wonderful company towns run by Amazon with cheap housing. And no, that is not how that's going to manifest. That is not how it's manifested historically. That is not how this works. And as we go through the article, we'll see the level of delusion that this author seems to be in. Now, the author goes through a lot of sections where it talks about where these facilities are built, mostly in the outskirts of major cities, where a lot of housing would probably be relatively cheaper, and where the company can buy up lots of land for warehouses that are still pretty close to metropolitan areas. And that's generally where a lot of these facilities are built. And from there, the author goes on to say, these warehouses also provide jobs to large numbers of people. An 800,000 square foot Amazon building employs between 1,000 and 1,500 full-time workers. So when you have multiple large warehouses operated by different companies packed along both sides of the highway in close proximity, you can be talking about a cluster of employing many thousands of workers. So yeah, what this piece is getting at is a trend that might actually start to happen. And that is worth talking about, but not for the reasons that this particular author is describing. The idea that we're going to have people potentially being coerced into moving into facilities and housing built by these companies and under the jurisdiction of company towns is not something to look forward to. The idea that 1,500 full-time workers and their families could be at multiple facilities on both sides of a highway, essentially having all of their services run by a company, doesn't sound like a pleasant dream. It sounds like the same type of things we've seen historically, where people are going to be controlled, people are going to be manipulated, and more. And the thing is Amazon can control whether or not people can even come into these facilities. Because if they tell their workers, oh, we'll give you a higher wage if you move into the facility because you'll be on time for work more, and you'll have less of a commute, and they put out all these perks and some of the things that are being mentioned in this particular piece, you can bait people in. And the thing is, with this type of company town, the more you can bait people in, the more you can pull a bait and switch later and stop providing a lot of these services as things move forward. And as the author says, it doesn't make sense then to think about how we can make these communities better for people who will live and work there. And no, it doesn't, because this is the type of reformism. Like, you're going to reform a company town and somehow make it better if it's falling under the jurisdiction of the company. That's not going to work. And even if you try to pass off some of that jurisdiction onto the cities, they'll be able to control the local area. They'll end up getting some sort of grant or some sort of ability through the government system that will allow them to control the local municipality. And that's going to be a major issue. Even if they supposedly have to, listen to someone else, they'll be able to buy off a lot of the politicians, and you'll see a lot of the same things happen that, again, have happened historically. And so, yeah, it doesn't make sense to think about how these communities could be made better for people because they can't, because of the nature of the structure of a company town. That's not how it works. It doesn't get better. Once the bait and switch comes to its end form and it actually is switched out, you will find people in desperate poverty and desperate situations and desperate to get out with no means to do so. And it's according to this person, it starts by making jobs as high paying and safe as possible, whether that can be done by running labor markets hot or perhaps with unionization or the threat of it. Amazon's already fought unions. Amazon has already been fighting against unions for a while now. And you're going to think that once they have a bunch of people hostage in their towns, that it's going to be somehow better? That's ridiculous. That's not how these type of things work. And it's just an unrealistic proposition to think that it will. Even if you're able to try to create safer working conditions in the short term, once people are in the control of these facilities, they are going to have all of those slowly unrolled behind everybody's back. And once you're part of that organization and you live with a company, how are you supposed to go find another job or go find employment anywhere where you can be essentially blacklisted by the company itself? That's not reasonable. This is not going to work. You're trying to create reforms on the idea of a company town, and that's not going to work. And it even gets expanded upon here. People can live close to work with shorter commutes, plus the possibility of employer-provided shuttle buses when their jobs are in a cheaper, less crowded part of a metro area. So you're creating this illusion that you're going to have this like wonderful thing where everybody's going to be able to afford houses and everybody's going to have short worker commutes that are provided by with buses. No, what's probably going to happen in a lot of these facilities is people are still going to be mandated to have cars. They're going to still have to be drive themselves to work. Maybe there'll be some sort of carpool system set up, but the chances of a company like Amazon actually providing these things when they're not the type of company to even provide their workers time to go to the bathroom is absurd. And the fact that there's this worship of companies like Amazon, that they're just going to do the right thing and make everything wonderful for everybody, and they make life so convenient and easy, is just a mirage. That's just a complete illusion. And I don't know where this author gets off thinking that this is even going to be remotely possible. They say as wages rise and more jobs are created at warehouses and distribution hubs, you'll get a secondary increase in economic activity as amenities like retail and dining are built close by to appeal to the workforce. And you know who's going to get to dictate which amenities and which companies come in? Amazon, because they're going to be the ones in control of the facility. They're going to own the land. They're going to rent it out to people who are going to open up businesses. And if those businesses don't conform to Amazon policies and don't deny certain Amazon workers that maybe got blacklisted or families that are not wanted anymore, they are going to make it hell for more people. You're going to see company towns literally reform, and we're going to have to fight for unions again and breaking the holds of that. And that's not going to happen easily. Once they have you in, it's harder to get out. And these new factory towns will presumably have new issues that need addressing, such as adequate amounts of housing, schools, and healthcare facilities. Do you want Amazon running a school that's going to eventually employ those future the students that are going to become future employees? Do you want them running the little healthcare facility that might exist? Do you want them in charge of the police department, the fire department, and anything else that's required? They will constantly prioritize their profits and the facilities they have over other people's homes, and it's a ridiculous idea that it'll be any different. The point is that this article here from Bloomberg is creating a fantasy reality where Amazon will benevolently provide for the people. And in some way, shape, or form, they will keep all of these perks that are provided, that unions will fight for, and all of these magical things will happen. And there won't be any entrapment of people later where a bait and switch will happen. And history shows us that that's not how things work. That is exactly how it transpires. All of the perks will slowly be rolled back and none of it will maintain. And the author's envisioning this future where the family is going to work for and serve Amazon, and somehow Amazon is going to be so grateful that they're going to provide schools and doctors and, all the other facilities that people need, including a shuttle bus straight to their jobs. And none of that's going to come at any cost to people. But As long as the people, of course, are willing to follow their great feudal corporate leader who only pays them in Amazon gift cards, then I'm sure it'll be wonderful and fine. And if you can't sense the sarcasm dripping off of me, I'm sorry. There is so much wrong here in this fantasy. The history really does speak for itself. And it is absurd the level of trust that's being put in the hands of these large companies. The situation in Nevada that I covered last time, and companies like Amazon this time that are already preventing unionization efforts. Amazon already overworks their employees to nearly robotic schedules to the point where people are peeing in bottles. And this is the company that we're going to trust to listen to the demands of workers and take care of the communities they live in and they need, that's going to provide them with all the care that they want and have to have as a community. And once they're under the jurisdiction of a company, that company's supposed to be trusted in their for-profit models to look after people's wants and needs? I think not. That is absurd, and that is a fantasy. You can't reform company towns. That is ridiculous. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. You can follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord in the description down below. My name is Anarchist Tara. This whole thing is absolutely absurd, and I thank you for watching.